Our records are a sense of pride for the work that you put into the game. So, yeah, I'm happy to have it because I think it showcased how much practice and effort that I put into it. I think what you're seeing with James Harden is the same. He's not doing this off the whim.
James Harden didn't just change the game, he reimagined it. With his signature step back, a move crafted through years of grit and precision, Harden transformed a single step into a weapon that left defenders lost and the world in awe. This wasn't just a move, it was a revolution that redefined what it meant to be an offensive superstar. A 2018 MVP, a 10-time All-Star, a 7-time All-NBA selection, third all-time for triple-doubles in a single season, and a streak of 32 consecutive games with 30-plus points. Harden's resume speaks for itself, but his journey began far from the spotlight. From the gritty courts of Compton to the roaring arenas of the NBA, he took a single move and turned it into a game changer. So where did it all begin? And how did one man with one move rewrite the rules of basketball? In truth, it's nothing short of a miracle that James Harden even made it to the NBA, let alone reshaped the art of scoring. His journey wasn't simply a climb to greatness, it was a battle against the odds. From a childhood marked by hardship to the challenges he faced just to stand on an NBA court, Harden's story is one of heartache, pain, and an unbreakable will. To his mother, Manja Willis, James Harden's birth was nothing short of a miracle. After enduring several painful losses, she finally welcomed her third child into the world on August 26, 1989, in Los Angeles. She called him Lucky, the baby who wasn't supposed to be here, who defied the odds just by taking his first breath. But Harden's journey was only beginning, and it wouldn't be an easy one. He grew up in Compton, a place marked by poverty and violence, known in the 90s as one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in America. Here, young James faced a harsh reality, a world where drugs and gangs ruled the streets, where his father's absence and criminal past cast a long shadow, and where most kids' dreams were cut short before they could even take flight. Yet in the middle of this turmoil, Harden found a single glimmer of hope: basketball. On the gritty streets of Compton, where danger lurked at every corner, basketball was Harden's only refuge. Even as a child, he showed a natural talent for the game, with a burning passion that would stay with him throughout his career. But the harsh streets of Compton weren't his only struggle. As a young boy with severe asthma, Harden often gasped for air on the court, his chest tight with every step, every shot. Friends would tease him, coaches would question him, but inside, he knew this struggle was just the beginning. Despite the odds, James Harden's resolve remained unbreakable. His love for basketball drove him to focus on becoming one of the best ball handlers and shooters the game has ever seen. James Harden had something few others did: a relentless work ethic and an unbreakable will. With each dribble, each shot, he chipped away at the obstacles in his path, transforming himself into one of the most exciting young players in the nation. In college, he suited up for the Arizona State Sun Devils, where his skills sharpened and his confidence grew. By his sophomore year, the kid who once seemed destined for failure had silenced every doubter. He was no longer just a promising talent, he had become a consensus All-American and the Pac-10 Player of the Year, posting impressive stats: 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. But one question lingered: was Harden truly ready to take the leap into the NBA? Harden set his sights on the 2009 draft, but many scouts saw him as a bit chubby, with physical limitations they thought might hold him back. But that night, with the draft lights glaring and doubts swirling around him, Harden was ready to show the world that no label could define his destiny. Then came the 2009 draft, where he was chosen 3rd overall by the Oklahoma City Thunder, making him the first pick in the history of the new franchise, born from the dissolution of the Seattle Supersonics in 2008. Thus, a young 6'5" shooting guard entered the league, joining a team brimming with top-tier talent: Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Serge Ibaka, and now James Harden. Unlike other top draft picks, Harden didn't arrive as the team's savior or leader. In his first season, he averaged 22 minutes per game and scored 9.9 points, earning him a spot on the NBA All-Rookie second team. That season, the Thunder achieved 50 wins, making their first playoff appearance, but falling in the first round to the Lakers. By his second year, Harden was seeing more playing time, averaging 16.8 points. As the team's sixth man, he became a key contributor as the Thunder secured 55 wins and another playoff berth, advancing to the conference finals. But Dallas would prove too much, taking the series series 4-1 on their way to the championship. In his third season, that Harden would emerge as a true NBA threat. Coming off the bench in his sixth-man role, he dismantled opponents with averages of 16.8 points, 4 rebounds, and 3.7 assists. The Thunder surged through the Western Conference playoffs, losing only 3 games on their way to the 2012 NBA Finals. There they faced the Miami Heat's Big Three: LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. However, the immense pressure and the team's inexperience proved overwhelming as they faced a LeBron James fueled by revenge after his finals loss to Dallas the previous year. Oklahoma would lose the series 4-1, unable to compete with the sheer power of the Heat. But fingers were quick to point at Harden as one of the primary culprits for the loss. The truth was that Harden was still a young player searching for his own game, and playing alongside two dominant figures like KD and Westbrook wasn't easy, especially with Coach Scott Brooks struggling to harmonize them. Harden ultimately turned down Oklahoma's $55 million 4-year extension, forcing the franchise to make a shocking trade to the Houston Rockets. Houston had just landed one of the most talented young players in the league, the beard that brought hope to an entire franchise that rewarded him with a substantial 5-year, $80 million contract. In his stunning debut with the Rockets, he scored 37 points, dished out 12 assists, grabbed 6 rebounds, and snagged 4 steals in a victory over the Pistons. On the court that night, Harden wasn't just playing, he was sending a message, stepping into the spotlight as the Rockets' newest sensation since the legendary Hakeem Olajuwon.
James is he's such a fantastic player. And, all I can do is sit on the sidelines and just shake my head. Like some of those plays he was making, the shots that he was making. Those are difficult shots for 90% of the players in the league.
Critics kept insisting it was just a fluke. Yet 2 days later, Harden scored 45 points against the Hawks, setting an NBA record with 82 points in his first 2 games with a new team. Harden showed he was no longer a sixth man in the shadows of bigger stars. Coach Kevin McHale placed his full trust in him, empowering Harden to lead the team. Harden went on an astounding 14-game streak, averaging 25 points, a feat unseen since the legendary Moses Malone. He also logged his first triple-double against Charlotte and delivered jaw-dropping performances like his 46-point game against his former team, the Thunder. Harden's meteoric rise led him to all-star status, and his leadership lifted the Rockets back into playoff contention after a 3-year absence. Fate seemed to have a hand in their first-round matchup, the Thunder, who defeated the Rockets 4-2, knocking out Harden's squad. Recognizing Harden's need for a strong co-star, the Rockets brought in center Dwight Howard, but unfortunately the pairing fell short of expectations. The two stars had very different ideas of how to run the team. To Harden, Howard's approach felt like an obstacle. In the end, everyone knew the truth. James Harden was the leader and the player to follow. With the Rockets, Harden found a place to fully develop his skills and master his offensive game, especially his iconic move, the step back, a play that could shift the outcome of an entire game and became one of the most influential moves of the past decade. James Harden was no longer the same player who first entered the NBA in 2009. His once-average step back had evolved into a signature move, reshaping offensive play across the league and inspiring young players at every position to adopt his technique. Harden was no longer just the wild, energetic player. He had become a methodical master and exceptional playmaker with an unparalleled vision for reading defenses and positioning his teammates. He added isolation play to his arsenal, a style that became highly popular in the NBA, redefining efficiency and possession control. His unique way of drawing fouls by manipulating his arms transformed how players score and forced defenses to adapt to a new style of play. Loved and hated in equal measure, Harden was a basketball genius who drove opponents and critics alike to frustration. But what was perhaps most impressive about Harden was his sheer ability to dismantle defenses. Harden became the ultimate weapon for fast breaks and offensive dominance. By 2015, Harden had established himself as one of the best players in the league, making his debut on the All-NBA first team and finishing as runner-up in the NBA MVP voting, just behind Stephen Curry. Yet many believed the beard deserved that MVP title title, a sentiment only strengthened when the Players Association named Harden as their MVP. Despite Harden's impressive form, the Rockets weren't as fortunate. By 2015, even with Harden's exceptional play leading them to their first conference final since 1997, Houston was overpowered by Curry's Golden State Warriors in 5 games. This defeat highlighted an undeniable strain between Harden and Howard. The two superstars simply couldn't mesh on the court. The following season, everything unraveled. With an unstable team, Kevin McHale was fired as head coach, and a humiliating first-round playoff loss to the Warriors, where Harden and Howard had stopped speaking entirely, ultimately led to Howard's departure to the Hawks. By summer 2016, Houston was a team in limbo, and with Howard gone, there seemed to be little hope that Harden could carry the team alone. But when new head coach Mike D'Antoni and general manager Daryl Morey came on board, changes came fast. New arrivals like perimeter shooters Ryan Anderson and Eric Gordon, and Harden's transformation into the team's point guard breathed life into a revamped run-and-gun philosophy under D'Antoni, giving Houston a renewed sense of purpose. The Rockets shattered the record for most three-pointers attempted in a season with a staggering 3,306 attempts, leaving the previous high of 714 in the dust, and surpassing even Golden State's once revolutionary three-point game by 27%. With Harden thriving as the team's point guard, he became the very embodiment of this new era in basketball. Not only did Harden adapt to the modern style, but his numbers exploded in unbelievable fashion. Triple-doubles became a regular part of his nightly routine, with this high-octane offense boosting his stats. In one unforgettable game against the Knicks, Harden dropped 53 points, dished out 17 assists, and pulled down 16 rebounds. On another night, he scored 51 points with 13 rebounds and 13 assists, making him the first player in NBA history with multiple 50-point triple-doubles. In that same season, Harden recorded 25 triple-doubles, led the league in assists, scored over 2,000 points, dished out 900 assists, and grabbed 600 rebounds, achieving numbers that no player had ever reached before. Despite this, he would again finish second in the MVP race, losing this time to his former teammate Russell Westbrook, who set a triple-double record with 42 that season. Though the Rockets advanced past the first round, defeating Oklahoma City, they would fall to the Spurs in the semifinals. Once again,
James went on to score 55 points, and here's the bad part. They beat us by 30. And with like a minute left, he was dribbling the ball, staying in the half court, and he was just staring at me. And he goes, tell your team what you did to him. And I said...
In 2017, Harden signed a 4-year extension with Houston worth $160 million, making it the biggest contract in NBA history at the time. And with the arrival of the Chris Paul and PJ Tucker, Houston became one of the most talented rosters in the league. There were plenty of skeptics who doubted that Harden and Paul could truly work together, and after the failed partnership with Howard, critics were certain history would repeat itself. But they were wrong. Harden and Paul fit together seamlessly. With Paul running the offense, Houston no longer had to rely so heavily on Harden to create plays and bear the full load of ball handling. This gave Harden a newfound freedom to excel on both ends of the court. He would become the first player in NBA history to score a 60-point triple-double against the Mavericks and claimed his first scoring title with an average of 30.4 points per game.
Sure, I think the focus is there. And it's amazing. If you look at Harden, last year, put up amazing numbers. Didn't make the All-NBA first team, didn't make the All-NBA second team or third team, right? And so you look at their summer, and they just went in the trenches and said, you know what, we're going to lock down, we're going to focus 100% on what our craft is. And they went into their muse cage, they started dark musing, and they come back extremely focused, and here they are.
Houston clinched the top spot in their conference for the first time, finishing the season with a franchise record 65 wins and 17 losses. In the playoffs, they easily dispatched Minnesota and Utah, setting up a showdown with the reigning champions, the fearsome Warriors. Despite Golden State's seemingly invincible lineup, Houston took the lead in the series, going up 3-2, and it finally seemed they might achieve achieve the impossible. But disaster struck in Game 6, as Chris Paul was injured and forced to sit out the remainder of the series, leaving the Rockets with their backs against the wall. Yet, against all odds, Houston came out swinging in Game 7. Without Paul, they kept Golden State's offense in check and held their own on offense until halftime. But everything fell apart in the second half. The Rockets would go on to miss 27 straight three-pointers, a record in NBA history, and as the shots failed to fall, they lost control of the game and ultimately the series falling 4-3. Despite the devastating elimination, not all was lost for Harden. His relentless effort and dedication to improving as a player earned him the first and only MVP award of his career. After finishing second in MVP voting twice, the basketball world finally recognized him as the best player in the game. After achieving the best regular season in franchise history, it was natural for the performance to dip somewhat. The Rockets started the 2018-19 season with an 11-15 record, but what was most troubling was the team's disarray. The rapid, high-paced style they'd crafted based on fast breaks and relentless attempts seemed to vanish. The departure of key players, Chris Paul's injury, and Carmelo Anthony's disappointing impact only heightened the sense that Houston was in free fall. But then James Harden took matters into his own hands and delivered an unprecedented display of offensive firepower. Harden went on a historic 32-game streak, scoring 30 or more points each night, the only player to even approach Wilt Chamberlain's record of 65. He became the first player ever to score 30 points against every single NBA team in a single season. And if that wasn't enough, in 18 of those games he scored 40 points, in 4 he reached 50, and in a spectacular performance against the Knicks, he set a personal best with 61 points. Harden would finish that season with staggering averages of 36.1 points, 7.5 assists, and 6.6 rebounds, matching a record held by the best of all time. He and Michael Jordan became the only players to finish a season with 2,700 points, 500 rebounds, and 500 assists. That historic season by the Beard redefined the game itself. His lethal left drive became one of the most unstoppable moves in the NBA, turning every attack into relentless pressure on defenders. Coupled with his playmaking genius, it became nearly impossible for any team to shut him down. Harden's perfect recipe was clear: exquisite ball control, a dribble smooth as silk, strength rivaling Heracles himself, and a first step so fast it was said to be studied by scientists nationwide. This gave Harden an instant edge with every play. Defenders knew that Harden would go left 80% of the time, but the remaining 20%? That's where his arsenal of options could dismantle any defense in mere milliseconds. By 2019, Harden wasn't just the king of the step back or the left drive. His newest weapon was a shot and move he had fine-tuned in his own lab of innovation at the step back 3. Harden was smart enough to combine this revolutionary movement with the shot that had begun to dominate the NBA, creating his ultimate weapon. His step back three-pointer became a spectacle unto itself, a single shot that could change the tide. Defenders went mad, unsure if they should wait or press, knowing there was no solution. Harden could create an outside shot in any spot, in any situation, rising above everyone else with ease. His offensive mastery was unprecedented. Harden's isolations became the beginning and end of every Rockets strategy. Soon the team realized that the key was to maximize Harden's game, not as a solo act, but as a full team effort. Screen movements forced defenders to rotate constantly, creating the confusion needed for Harden to capitalize. The Rockets may never have achieved the ball movement of the Warriors, but their player movement was the best in the league. Harden had transformed his team and the NBA forever. That squad, which had started 11-15, surged back with 42 wins over their next 56 games, earning themselves a fresh shot at the playoffs. Though Houston was on a tear, they'd fall to the Warriors again in the second round 4-2, proving that there was nothing they could do against the NBA's best team at the time, even with Harden averaging a remarkable 35 points, 7 assists, and 5 rebounds. 2019 ended with the Raptors as champions and Giannis Antetokounmpo crowned MVP. In the years that followed, injuries held Harden back from his peak, and after leaving Houston for the Nets in 2021, his effectiveness waned. Though he still maintained a good level of play, it wasn't enough to see playoff success. Harden's public perception also took a hit, especially after a $50,000 fine for breaking health and safety protocols during the pandemic. Critics claimed his foul drawing and dribble-heavy style slowed down the game. Stories of his nightlife and playoff shooting struggles further fueled detractors, making some reluctant to rank him among the game's greatest. Yet under a closer lens, his time with the Rockets reveals a rare talent who forced rival defenses to reshape themselves in his presence. Harden carried his team's offensive weight like few before him, reminiscent only of what LeBron did for the Cavs. But the list grows shorter when we ask who truly changed the game. And yes, Harden is one of them, a mastermind who, despite a life filled with struggles and setbacks, pushed forward through sheer passion and hard work. He may not have a ring that shines from the rafters, and he might not be everyone's favorite player. Yet his relentless drive to perfect the moves that revolutionized NBA offense, his innovation in the game rivaling the greatest legends, James Harden undeniably left a mark that can never be erased.